The article I'll be presenting is called Parental Involvement in Elementary Children's Religious Education, a Phenomenological Inquiry, written by Peter W. Bunnell and published in the Journal of Research on Christian Education. Historically, Judeo-Christians have believed that parental involvement is extremely important in a child's education. If you talk to pastors and educators, they will tell you that a key factor in that child's education and them succeeding is whether or not the parents are really involved. This study I found extremely interesting because they took a phenomenological approach at it. They decided to study whether or not a parent's involvement in their child's education is extremely important. So they took their bias that it is important, tried to get rid of it, and they just looked at the analytics and the data. So what this study really tried to show was what parents deemed to be important, why they saw it important to be involved in their child's education, and what was motivating them to be involved in their child's education. The parents that they talked to and interviewed, they saw that their child learning the biblical principles that they believed, as well as the strong education material, that's what they deemed extremely important. The reason they deemed it important was really all intrinsic. Parents themselves believed that their child needed these things. And their intrinsic motivation really ranged from two different sides of the spectrum. You have parents on one side who said, I was trained this way, it was great, this is what my child needs, to, I had a terrible education, I was not raised the way I was supposed to, and I want my child to get that. And it was all intrinsic. There was no one behind them pushing them to do this. It was all just themselves. They themselves wanted to see their child succeed. And I believe that those parents are the ones that are following the biblical principles that we see. In Deuteronomy 6:7 it says, And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. So these parents were taking that biblical principle and applying it to their children. They really were involved in their children's education. And their children did better when they did the study of children who had their parents involved versus those who didn't. The scores of the children whose parents were involved were significantly better than those who are not. And as applying that to me as an educator and others, I see this every single day where the kids in my class who are doing really well, most of them have a parent or their parents behind them pushing them, and those that don't really struggle. And I have a class that is split up of almost half of the kids do not have parents behind them and half do. Speaking of those who have been involved in Christian education for over 20 years, they have told me, and from other people I've talked to, there's been an extreme shift of parental involvement. From 20 years ago, you had parents really involved, to now, it's really hard to get a parent who really cares about their child's education. And this is really bad when it comes to education because it's twofold. It's the home and it's the school. Each are backing up one another, and that's when the child is going to do best, is when the school is backing up the home, and the home is backing up the school. When a parent doesn't understand or doesn't care that their child is doing poorly in school, and they just don't see the importance of their involvement, it can be really hard to get them to grasp that their involvement is really key to their child succeeding. So as a Christian educator, part of my responsibility, or as I see it as part of my responsibility, is to get that parent to understand and see that when they are involved in their child's education, their child is going to do better on not only the academic level, but spiritually, their behavior is going to change. When the parents really care how the kids do in school, the child will really care about how they are doing in school, and it gives them more motivation to do well. So as a Christian educator, it's not only our job to educate our students, but if we can get our parents to understand and be educated that their involvement in their child's education is just as important as my involvement as their teacher in their child's education, I think we'd be winning.